Good morning. Good to see you all here. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. I'm Reverend Bob Renjilian. I use he, him pronouns. It's good to see you all here this morning. And if you're new to us, fairly new to us, especially welcome you and hope that you'll stay and converse in our coffee hour after the service and we can get to know you better. I have a few announcements. How many of you have seen anything, heard anything about the Dinner for Two anywhere? So there are a bunch of people who haven't heard about it yet, and there's a bunch of stuff I could say about this. I know RK said really good things last week about it. Basically, really cool idea. You need to know, I don't like raffles. I don't like door prizes. I don't like making people sell brooms or whatever else just to get in extra money. But when this idea came across my attention, and we credit Nancy for that, for finding out about it from elsewhere, I said, this is not a raffle. When we were at the Halloween Fest, sometimes the people at the UUTC booth would say, would you like a raffle ticket? No. The question is, could you dream of where you would love to be in this world? Could you dream about how you would reach out to see a different culture or connect with some genealogical place that you'd never been to? What if you had the ability to give to your postal carrier, the person who rakes your leaves, your kids, the chance to go anywhere in the world, and that UUTC would pay the airfare, would pay 2 nights stay, would pay for the meal. Sorry, you got to pay the rest of your meals for the time you're there. You got to pay for your own Uber, all of that. But you could dream about where you wanted to go. That's what we're trying to do. Now, I was told that when I learned about the congregations that did this, there are 2 congregations, 2 styles of congregations. The ones that require each and every member to sell tickets, and they meet their budget. And the ones who don't require their members to meet the budget. Because the people say, oh, I don't want to sell. I don't want to give them to anybody I like. Why would I put anybody in the world? I don't really like my mail carrier all that much. I don't want to give them one. I don't want to sell one to people that I know at work. I mean, I'll buy all their Girl Scout cookies, but I'm not going to try to sell them a trip to anywhere in the world. They're just not worth it. You can see where I'm going with this. I am responsible for fundraising in this congregation, even though it's really like RK and Ian and Kay who are pulling it off. I am. If we don't sell the 1,000 tickets, I'm going to find something else for you to do. Because we'll have a hole in our budget. And I'm responsible for doing that. So, help somebody dream. Help somebody think about where they want to go in this world. Go for it, folks. We can only sell these things through the first couple of days of January because we said at that point we'd do the drawing. As long as we meet the minimum number of ticket sales, we're going to go for it. So that was a really long announcement. All right, so you think you got the message? I hope so. Keem says you guys got the message. Don't make Keem a liar. All right. We had Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday we did differently. You know, some years we ask specifically for something monetarily for this congregation, and we've had really neat responses. This time we're asking people, and even though Tuesday's gone, we're asking people to think about ways you would be connected to the work and mission of this congregation. Do you want to sign up to be part of a group. Now, this is a two-way thing. Anybody who's in a group here, working on a ministry team, for example, knows that you've got a sense of connection because you get together and you do something that's important. You contribute something of your time and your talent to all of this. I would love for you to look out on the bulletin boards and say, yeah, I want to join that team. And let me know, because I'm looking for fresh faces and ideas to come on to the teams. Different kind of Giving Tuesday. Special services, you know that this month has extra services. At 4:30 today, before the sun's down, you can come to the Grief at the Holiday service, more somber service. Whatever grief you may be experiencing, whether it's a long-term one or a fresh one, we invite you to this service. There are one or two responses to say in it, but we generally don't force you to do anything. And you don't have to dance to Jingle Bells or anything, because it's not that service. That's the 4:30 children's service on Christmas Eve. But this one, 4:30 somber holiday service, is a way of realizing the holidays are not always fun. And I'm going to tell you, in my own family, December, I get depressed because I remember my grandmother died this month. My dad died this month. My hometown school was shot up in this month, Newtown, Connecticut. I have a lot of griefs that come up anniversary-wise when I get to December. So I think it's an important service to lead here. The Authentic Selves book on the stories of trans people, the Common Read book for Unitarian Universalists, I announced a couple of weeks ago, and there is a copy on the countertop over by the library. We did go ahead and buy one in case anybody wasn't ordering one from Highland Books. I talked to Emily from Highland Books, who said I wasn't the only one who had ordered one of those. So I'm really glad to hear that there are a couple of copies that have been bought through them. And this just pictures and stories of a multitude of trans folks. It's a very timely topic and a good one for folks to read through. We recognize the wisdom of the world's religions, and on this day there are a couple of observances that we will be mentioning as part of the service, and we'll sing a hymn for each one. Bodhi Day falls on the 8th day of the 12th month, which in cultures using the Gregorian calendar would be today. This commemorates the enlightenment of the Buddha. And Buddha sat under a variety of fig tree, which is now renamed Bodhi tree, until awakening occurred. And we'll sing a closing song from Buddhist sources today in recognition of that. It's also the second Sunday of Advent in the Christian tradition, leading up to Jesus' birth in the manger, with anticipation for such things as love, peace, hope, joy. And we sing an Advent hymn and light the 2 Advent candles of the set today. Thank you for listening closely to all those announcements, which is not everything that I could have mentioned. We're a busy place. We have lots of great things going on, but that's a start to things to pay attention to. At this point, I would like to ask you to turn to one another and recognize the worth and dignity of each person around.
If you would, join me as we read in unison the words of Jikaran Aloha. we light this chalice here in the darkness of winter as we wait. This temporary space is one filled with prayers to be answered, love to be given and received, miracles to be witnessed. May this light guide us until the light of the sun returns again.
There are several cards that have been left at the front here, and I had one submitted electronically for our joys and sorrows. We'll light a candle for each of these. I'll start with one that came posted through our online system, and this is from Jean Rowe. She says that Lackey Rowe is actively dying. It will probably be in the next 48 hours. And she wants to thank the many UUTC people who sat with him in this past year and gave so much love. For this, we light a candle. Let's light another one for Jean herself. Is that getting stuck? Here, let me see if I can force it. Yeah. We also light a candle for Jeannie Bernard's daughter, Elena, who has surgery in Orlando tomorrow, and also for Jeannie, who will be with her for several weeks. We have a request for a prayer of comfort for the people of the Middle East and all that's going on there. And again, echoing more specifically, wishing the people of Syria freedom from repression and a future of peace. If you slide that forward, it will get more. Yeah. And we have two people who have requested lights. If you do two at once here, I'll read both. For Jane Ramsey, please light a candle for Jane Ramsey, who is facing a serious health problem affecting her vision. And more specifically, Gary writes, on Wednesday of this week, she had what was diagnosed as a stroke in one eye, resulting in significant impairment. And she has already undergone numerous tests and will have more tomorrow. We feel for Jane, and thank you, Gary, for that. Let's light a candle for those things that were not shared, perhaps held in the hearts of those who are here or those who are watching online. Let's remember both the joys and the sorrows as we talked with each other in the coffee hour afterwards, because this is what strengthens and makes our sense of community in this place. Thank you.
I'm not known for my grace. Our opening words are from the Reverend Tanya Yadira Marquez. She has worked in parish ministry, hospital chaplaincy, and for various social justice causes. She lives in the San Diego area, has lived in the border region for most of her life, on both sides of the border. Her ministry is influenced by that and her immigrant experience. She believes in the healing power of words, rituals, and community. Opening words. It is a wonder and mystery that our paths have crossed. That in the immensity of time and the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe at the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine. at the beauty we create as we gather together. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, more compassionate, and more loving. May our hearts and our minds be open to this offering. I am so glad you are here. Let us worship. Let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now and the mystery that has brought us together. Let us rise as you're able and sing number 226. No, let us first light the Advent candles, and then we will sing. I like to keep Bob on his toes. You can read the words.
I can.
Yes.
Last week we lit the first candle for hope, first week of Advent. And this week I'm lighting, the second week of Advent, I'm lighting a candle for peace. I'm not sure the Presbyterians are doing peace this week, but the Unitarian Universalists are. I've read the news. I've read the news.
Yeah. Now, if you'll rise, as you are able, for the opening hymn, number 226, People Look East.
Good morning. For our words of wisdom today, we have a story probably a lot of y'all have heard before. It's called The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry, and we'll be telling a little bit shortened version of it. Well, a long time ago in a land sort of far away, or it might have been close by and very recently in our little town, there lived a couple. And the couple's name was Jim and Della. And Jim and Della loved each other very much. They'd been married for a little while, but this was their first Christmas together. And they had love, they had compassion, they had kindness, enough for themselves and to share to everybody else. But what they didn't really have much of was money. They were very poor and really struggling. Well, it was the day before Christmas, and neither of them had bought a gift for the other for Christmas yet, because they really couldn't afford it. And Jim went out to do some errands for the day, and Della stayed at home for a little while, and she fretted and worried. What would she do about a gift for Jim? All she had was $1.87, and that had been carefully saving pennies and nickels as much as she could. but always the costs were much greater than they could afford. And she worried and wondered and fretted and walked around. And then she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror in their small little apartment. And she looked at herself and turned and looked some more, and she had very long hair that came down to about her waist, and she wondered, could she get a gift for Jim? So she hurried out because she knew what she really wanted to get for him, and she went through their little town to a little shop that made wigs. This was in the time when they still made wigs. And she knocked on the door and went in and said to the shopkeeper, "Do you still buy hair to make wigs?" And the shopkeeper said, "Well, maybe. Let's take a look." And so Della took off her coat and her long hair tumbled out, and the shopkeeper felt it a little bit and lifted it and made an estimate and said, "I'll give you $20 for it." And Della said, "I'll take it." So the shopkeeper went to work and very quickly cut Della's hair very short and then paid her the $20, and Della headed out into the street with her money because she knew what she wanted to get for Jim. And she went through this shop, and this shop was a little too expensive, that shop. She finally found something that would work. It was a gold watch chain. For you see, the one nice thing they had was a very old gold watch, pocket watch, that Jim had that had been his father and his father before him and had been passed down to him. And she knew this would be exactly what Jim would want, because he often would take that little watch out and study it and roll it around in his hand and put it back. It was his prized possession. So Della hurried home, got the gold chain, and put it into a little cloth and wrapped it up with a little piece of bow and put it in a safe place in their house. Well, later on, Jim came home, and he was shaking off the cold and stomped the snow off his boots and was taking off his coat and was hanging it up when he looked and he saw Della, and he stopped. And the strangest look was on his face. It wasn't really a smile, it wasn't a frown, it wasn't anger, it was just confusion and, oh, what do we do now type of look. And Della said, "Don't worry, I cut off all my hair, but it'll grow back fast, don't you worry." And he said, "Della, you getting a haircut could never change, improve, or diminish my love for you, for I love you deeply. But when I give you your gift, you're probably going to understand." And she said, "Okay, but first you." And she went up to him and gave him the little piece of cloth with a bow around it. And he looked at it and smiled and opened it up and pulled out a gold watch chain. And then his face really looked confused, not a frown, not a smile. He's just saying, "Oh, my dear, thank you so much. It is so kind of you. Let me give you your gift, and then I'll tell you about this one." And so she said, "Okay." And he handed her a little package, and she opened up the little package and pulled out 2 jeweled combs. They're combs that she had looked at in a store window for a long time. She knew they could never afford them, but they're now here. But she really didn't have the hair to put them in anymore and to hold her hair back with. And she laughed and said, "Oh, don't worry, Jim. They're lovely. My hair will grow in, and I'll use them, and I'll cherish them." He said, "Okay. Now, I love this gold watch chain, but let me tell you what I did. I went out today, and I pawned my watch to buy the combs for you." So the watch was now gone. And they both looked at each other and started laughing. And they laughed until tears came down their face, and they hugged each other. For what they had done is they had made the other person really seen. They had made the other person known. For Della had always wanted those combs, and Jim had gotten them for him. And Jim always loved that watch, and Della had gotten him a gold chain for him. And they said, "This is okay. Let's put our gifts away for a little while. We're going to keep them. You can grow your hair back, and maybe I can buy my watch back if we work real hard at it. But let's just enjoy this Christmas together." And they had a beautiful, wonderful first Christmas together. So in this time when we think about giving presents, let's think about giving our presents, ourselves, our true selves, our whole selves, and by showing love to one another. And with that, we're going to call Gus up with our candle, and we're going to light the kids' chalice, and we'll sing them out to class.
back when I was a kid, I would go to the Unitarian Universalist congregation. Kids, close your ears to this one. Your parents don't want you to hear this. I would go to the Unitarian Universalist congregation, and my mom would sign up to help out with some of the teams. One of the teams she was involved in was the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, and doing good work around the world and getting things done. And when she would stay forever at church for after-church meetings or before church meetings, which, by the way, I do not recommend and have pretty much stomped out anytime any church wants to have them, is I would be stuck there. I would be stuck there. Coffee hour would be done, and I'd be hanging out, and I had really nothing to do. And so I learned how to hotwire cars in the church parking lot. And I, you're a smart kid. You know that all the adults are paying attention to what they're doing and not to you at all. And so I found things to do. And then one Sunday, my mom came to me and said, I'm going to be in a really long meeting. Dad is giving you some driving lessons. Why don't you practice using the clutch on our car in the parking lot? Be very careful, and you can get some practice while you're waiting. And I just looked angelically and said, Mom, that's so wonderful. Thank you. And I didn't tell her until 20 years later that I had already been doing that anyway. But that Unitarian Universalist Service Committee commitment was a big one. And that's because the Service Committee, as you know, I've said the story, started during World War II, getting refugees out of Europe ahead of the Nazis, finding whatever way possible to get people to safety, whether it was to America or elsewhere. And then expanded over time. The Service Committee began to do things like women's empowerment in small communities where women wanted to build economically something they could do with their craft work, or wells in communities with not clean water. And they partner with organizations that are involved in these efforts. This is the month in which we collect, except for Christmas Eve, which is for a different collection. But this is the month that we collect for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee in the special envelope. And so I invite you, as you think of your generosity, not only to this congregation in the general basket, but also specifically whether you would like to give to the Service Committee. And just be glad I'm not making you stay after church for meetings interminably. We will now gratefully receive the morning offering. Thank you, Scott and Karen. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Gypsy. For all that's given in love, we receive with great joy. We say, thank you. Please center yourselves in whatever ways are most effective for you. This is the time for our prayer and meditation. Brief moment to recognize what is within us and what we are connected to outside of ourselves, and the glow of these candles on this day. Spirit of love and life, on this day in which we recognize both the enlightenment of the Buddha and something of anticipation for the coming birth of Jesus with hope and peace. On this day when we recognize that in this world there is still turmoil in the Middle East, that we are praying for comfort of the people of the Middle East, and in particular this morning wishing the people of Syria freedom from repression and a hope for a future of peace. We bring as well our thoughts of those who are not in the seats with us, those who are slipping away from us, or those who have passed from us. And this morning in particular, we lift up the name of Lackey Rowe, whose decline has been coming, and it looks like it is his time now. Our hearts reach out to Jean and the family at this time. We have prayers as well for those who are facing serious health issues. I know in this congregation there are those who are having treatments or surgeries who have not spoken much of them, and we lift up our hearts to be ready in whatever ways we're asked to be of help and support. Let us all treat each other gently, as we don't know the full stories. In particular, this morning in the glowing lights, we lift up Jane Ramsey and Jeannie Bernard's daughter, Elena, and all who would be of support to those who are going through procedures and facing medical issues. We also lift up with joy those who donned elf ears and marched in the parade, the holiday parade, for all the smiles along the route, for all the wonder and joy in the hearts of those in this community, even as we know so many had been affected by the storms and the politics that had swept through. Spirit of love and life, we know that our ability to reach one another is one of the best prayers. May we carry that love in all that we do. These and the prayers of our hearts and the meditations of our minds we will hold now in the silence. names of all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen. Blessed be.
Oh, beautiful star of Bethlehem, shining afar through shadows dim, giving the light to those who long have gone, guiding the wise men on their way unto the place where Jesus lay. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on. Oh, beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine upon us until the glory dawns. Give us the light to guide the way unto the land of perfect day. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on. Oh, beautiful star, the hope of light, guiding the pilgrims through the night, over the mountains till the break of dawn, into the light of perfect day. It will give out a lovely ray. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on. Oh, beautiful star, the hope of rest for the redeemed, the good, the blessed. Yonder in glory when the crown is won. Jesus is now the star divine, brighter and brighter he will shine. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on. Oh, beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine upon us until the glory dawns. Give us the light to guide the way unto the land of perfect day. Beautiful star of Bethlehem, shine on.
Megan Lloyd, a colleague of mine, wrote this particular piece. It is in Megan's voice, and I share it with you. The moment of magic in the Christian calendar, Advent, is a time of waiting and preparation for the coming of the Christ child. The story from the first century Palestine tells us that with the birth of Jesus comes hope and love and the undoing of a status quo, a new reign of peace on earth. At this time of the year, we're invited, as weary people have done since the beginning of time, to kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music, to cradle our hopes like a newborn child, to wonder what love looks like in practice, to await a new era with patience and preparation. And this year, we might not feel like waiting is the best move. We might cry out and lament for lives and rights taken without account, joining our voices with all who cry for justice and peace. This year, sitting quietly in the midst of chaos might feel close to impossible. Finding the magic in this season of waiting can be difficult for many of us, not just this year, but any year. For how does one sit quietly when life can be so unkind? What about the times when we wait for word of family in conflict zones, of an injured friend or a dreaded diagnosis? Times for when we wait for illness to set in or for a child who does not arrive. In times like these, we might find ourselves wishing that time would pass more quickly to get us to the other side of a nightmare. How do we live in that kind of waiting time? Advent challenges us not just to wait, but to wait actively, to do the work of preparing hearts and till the soil that awaits seeds of hope and love. Advent encourages us to be present in each moment of waiting. The moment of magic, the time we have been waiting for, is now. Not some future day, not the end of the Advent calendar, not the hours that the days begin to lengthen again, or that long-awaited morning of presents. The mystery, the excitement, the beauty of this season are all found in the waiting time. And so we wait, allowing ourselves to be fully present to all that is happening in each moment. When we do, we join our lives and our breath and our hearts with all who are waiting, waiting for justice, waiting for peace, waiting for a world reborn. The sermon I announced is presence, C-E, presence, not presence, T-S. Part of this series this month of being a gift of presence. That reading there has something about it is the waiting time. It is the being in the now. Something that Buddha would have said as well. Be in the now. We have many words of wisdom throughout the world that tell us how not being in the now and being present to right this moment can cause us pain. Lao Tzu said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present. I don't know that that's always true, but Lao Tzu, how can I argue with Lao Tzu, you know? There's something to it in that if we're always carrying some burden of the past with us, and we may be depressed about that, the weight on us might be great. If we're always worrying what's coming, oh, I have a test at school, or I need to get certain things done, or I'm worried about the bills, I'm worried about the future. What if you were right now? What if you were just enjoying the fact of what Jacqueline said in our opening words and our chalice lighting this morning? What if we, in the darkness of winter as we wait, this is a temporary space that we recognize that is filled with prayers, love given and received, miracles. And that even if we're experiencing some darkness, this light is glowing until our own sense of sunlight returns. What ifs? What ifs? What if we were here now? The magic of this moment is realized when we let go of the past long enough and the future worries quickly enough to just breathe, just be. Now, can't really preach this to you, can I? Because I don't live it myself. Your own minister is defective. But I have the humility to recognize that I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep trying. I've told you the story of going on retreat when I was on sabbatical years ago at another congregation to a teacher of Vipassana Buddhism, and sitting with others and sitting cross-legged and on the floor and looking like an excellent Buddhist. I had a little bit of a belly and just sat. And I looked so serene. Well, my mind was monkey mind. It was all over the place. Think of something from before. Think of worry about something new. And what that teacher told me was, if you have for only a split second an open mind in which you are present, even in just that split second, you have achieved success. So if in an hour you have had 15 partial seconds in which you have been present, you have succeeded 15 times in this hour. Like, oh, that's a much better way to think about it. The story this morning that Kevin told was one that's, O. Henry's story is told and retold in various ways. I could tell that some of you had heard that story before about the fancy combs for the long hair that had been cut off and the chain for the watch that had been pawned. I had understood that that message was already known, and people don't like hearing the same story over and over again unless you're 3. And then you want that reassurance. Every page turns and has the same words on it and the same picture and the same outcomes. This is like repeating a prayer. That story repeated again and again in our lives from time to time may be just enough to remind us the gift. He called it the gift of the Magi, the wise gift, was not the actual object. It was a gift of attention. I have paid attention to what my loved one wants most. I have noticed the wants and sighs, and I know exactly that is what I need to get. It did not matter that the watch was gone and the hair was gone. What mattered was the attention had been there. That's being in the present. That's being in the moment and noticing the way the person next to you is breathing, vibrating their energy and life around you. We talk about Advent, waiting. In my childhood, we would have an Advent calendar, and you'd open a little door and see what was in it. Was there 3 French hens or turtle dove or whatever it might have been, little toys or musical instruments, whatever it may be. This little calendar opens up all the way to the end, and then you're on Christmas Day and you open the final door, and now you have presents with the T, presents. And I would say that is the morning in which we were least present. We were ripping open wrapping paper, reaching deep into a sock hung at the mantle to see what was in there, and checking out everything. But maybe maybe after each of those Christmases and those Advent calendars had taken place, maybe we realized that someone around us had paid attention. One year, I got a used 45 record from my brother. I remember this. It was a record that I know he had in his collection. Apparently, he'd gotten all the way to Christmas Eve without thinking of a gift for me. And he was pretty upset. And I think my mom helped him sit down and be present for a moment and decide, what would your brother like? What would Bob like? And he realized that this record he had in his collection was of my favorite group, the Beach Boys. And he didn't like them anywhere near as much as I liked the Beach Boys. And so he wrapped that 45 record and gave it to me. And I'm like, wait, but this is yours. I opened it and I said, this is your record. He said, no, it's yours now. I said, but you gave away something of yours. It was the gift of the Magi. I liked that record. I put that record on and I would listen to it. But I was very confused in my young heart as to why he was giving away something of his own. I'm going to have to write a Christmas card to my brother now and say, I still remember you gave me the Beach Boys. It still means something to me. I know you were rescuing a moment, but in so doing, you were present to the real gift. You were present to someone you loved. You were paying attention, which was the greatest gift of all. Sappy story from your minister. Advent, waiting. In our Soul Matters packet this month on presents, the studies that you can do at home and the questions to ponder, there's a quote from somebody named Mason Kipp, and I think it's a misspelling, because all over Unitarian Universalism they quote this Mason Kipp, M-A-S-I-N, and everywhere else on the internet there is a #1 best-selling author and speaker and creator of functional life coaching for people seeking rapid transformation in their lives called Maston Kipp. I think Unitarian Universalists loved this quote from Maston Kipp and then left out the T. My apologies if there really is an M-A-S-I-N Kipp, but I think it's Maston. And this is the quote. At the end of the day, do others feel loved in your presence? This is the spiritual bottom line. Okay, at the end of the day. Now, I know there are plenty of times in which I felt unseen, unloved by the presence of someone else. But I also know that that's been rescued many times by the presence of others. Somebody would understand, even if it was only the dog who would look at me as I complained how nobody loved me. There's always the chance to be a presence in someone else's life, and the gift of that and how much it means. I'm going to end this sermon with the ending of a prayer by my colleague Victoria Safford from Walking Towards Morning. I'm going to use the whole prayer at a future service, but just this end piece to end it. Now is the moment of magic, and here is a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. We've already received our presents. Ears to hear music, eyes to behold lights, hands to build true peace on earth, and to hold each other tight in love. Amen. We end our service with a hymn, number 184, Be Ye Lamps. We're going to go through this a couple of times. John, will you play it through once, and then I'll cue you to come on in with it. The words will be on the screen. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, from the Buddhist in recognition of Bodhi Day. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves, as to the only lamp. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold true the truth within yourselves, as to the only lamp. This light which has been glowing for this hour is now going out. But I hope this hour of presence with one another has been the gift that carries you outward into this world, into the jumble and the noise, into the anticipation and the nervousness and the depression, into whatever it is that you confront, that you remember this place, this moment, and know that you can return to this place and this type of moment right here. May you go out with love, return again with joy, blessings on all.